Welcome to Represent NYC on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network. Thank you for joining us. I'm New York State Comptroller Thomas P. As the state's chief financial officer, it's my job to make sure New York is in good financial health. I keep a particularly close eye on New York City because the city is the engine that helps the entire state economy. Social issues also have an impact on our economy, on services, and on quality of life. Today, I'll be discussing the effort to help families facing hunger in New York City and some of the programs that I oversee as controller that can help you save money for your future. But first, I want to look at how food banks work here in New York City.
There's days when my guys come in and they'll tell me about stories of people stopping them on the train, people talking to them almost like they're superheroes. And it just gives you a sense of pride, just to make a difference. You know, not too many times in life you get a chance to take care of your family and others. All right, good morning, fellas. We got a lot of loads in here, all right? We just got to make sure, get this produce out to the people, all right?
1, 2, 3, 4!
You look around this place, and every case in here is a meal for a family, for a child. We feed 1.4 million New Yorkers. Just imagine putting 1.4 million people at a dinner table. Just imagine what that looks like. I'm Darryl Gardner, and Food Bank is for New York City.
In this community especially, there's a lot of parents who doesn't have food to bring to their table. And Food Bank is doing a wonderful job to make sure that the parents get the opportunity to bring home healthy food for their children.
Kids really love the apples, the broccoli. My name is Eddie.
My name is Stephanie. And the food bank is here for our family.
My name is McKenna, and Food Bank is there for kids. I gave Food Bank $18 because they needed more money to make food for people and children. Giving made me feel proud because I think I made people happy.
My name is Heidi, and Food Bank is here for our future. We have a tremendous need on campus, and so we have students having to choose between food and books or rent and tuition. If it weren't for a partner like the Food Bank, we probably wouldn't have alternatives for them. It makes a difference. Once you do get them the things that they need and you see that load being lifted, and especially when they're graduating or they've gotten that certificate or that GED, you really do feel like you made a difference and you see the immediate impact of the work.
Poverty doesn't know any boundaries, doesn't know any ethnicities. Poverty can hit anybody. We're located in heavily Jewish neighborhoods, and the Jewish poor would want a kosher meal. We're open 9 years, but it's kind of 9 years every day a miracle that we are able to feed every person who walks through our door. We get a lot of help from the food bank, the fresh vegetables that we put into the menu, all from the food bank trucks. My name is Alex, and Food Bank is here for our community.
In our 31-year history, we've been called Food for Survival, Food Bank NYC, New York City Food Bank, all kinds of things. But we take great pride in the fact that our name really is Food Bank for New York City. For is our favorite word because it really means that we are the food bank for New Yorkers, and that means a lot to us.
Joining me now is my guest, Dr. Camesha Grant, who's dedicated her life to working with New York's most vulnerable families. Since 2013, she's been Vice President of Community Connections at the Food Bank for New York City. Dr. Grant, thank you for joining me today and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
New York City, one of the wealthiest communities in the country, in the world, and yet there are families, there are children that go hungry, and you're on the front line of seeing what's happening. So could you discuss a little bit of the problem and then how the food bank does its work to address that problem?
Absolutely. So Food Bank for New York City is an organization that's been around for 35 years. We are the major hunger relief organization in New York City, working to end hunger across the 5 boroughs. And we do that work through a network of over 1,000 emergency feeding providers.
1,000?
1,000.
Wow.
So that includes schools, soup kitchens, pantries all across the city.
5 boroughs?
5 boroughs, absolutely. Food Bank for New York City distributes food as well as non-food items to all of those locations. And last year we distributed about 58 million free meals to New Yorkers in need. So
Wow.
pretty
Wow.
large.
Yeah. So you really serve as an umbrella organization to, well, as your title is, make those connections with those that are providing the actual pantries and so what kind of locations would participate?
Sure. So we have pantries, which are locations similar to supermarkets. Families who are food insecure can go in and shop for groceries. We also have soup kitchens, and those are locations where a family can go in and get a prepared meal. So a hot, delicious, nutritious meal can be served 5 days a week. And then we also have schools, and in our schools we host what we call campus pantries. And we really have been very creative in bringing the food to where the families are and where the children are. And so we are serving across New York City in many New York City public schools, and we do host those pantries there as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned non-food items. Also, give us some examples of non-food items that someone that might want to access can find.
Absolutely. So if you are struggling to afford food, you can imagine how difficult it is to afford things that are not eligible under your SNAP benefit. So we're talking about personal care items, feminine hygiene, diapers, baby food. All of those items are really expensive and are very challenging for people who are struggling in our city to afford food.
In terms of the need that's out there, when we were talking before we started the show, I think you mentioned 1 in 5 children go hungry. Talk about the need that you see that's out there in the city.
Absolutely. So starting with just New Yorkers overall, 1 in 5 New Yorkers rely on food from a soup kitchen or pantry every year.
Wow.
So that's 1 out of every 5 New Yorkers. When you talk about children, that number is 1 in 5 as well. Women, we're seeing 1 out of every 6 women in our city. We're also seeing the working poor. I think people assume that people who come to pantries are not working. Many of our families are working.
Are working families.
They're working
Wow.
families.
Yeah.
We see a lot of veterans, a lot of seniors who are on fixed incomes and are also struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah.
So it runs the gamut.
Tell us how you get your funding and your financial support to provide the service that you provide.
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about our governmental assistance. Government plays a very key role in supporting the need to be able to feed 1 in 5 New Yorkers, as you'd imagine. SNAP is a crucial government program in which it really is on the front lines. It allows anybody who's struggling to afford food to go into a supermarket and shop. And that's where we want to see our families shopping, right? Pantries really should be the last line of defense. It should just supplement what you haven't been able to purchase because your SNAP benefits were just not enough or they've run out.
So if government plays a key role, obviously in Washington, sometimes in Albany as well, sometimes in the city, a lot of debate. Yeah. Your budget, as we know from an Albany context, is a tougher budget than we anticipated this year. And we know in Washington, and when we talked on the show before with some other guests, the impact of the administration's recommendations, the impact of the tax cut and the cut in programs. It seems to me, if I've followed it correctly, that early on in the current administration, they were talking about significant cuts in programs like SNAP and food assistance. Where does that stand? Have you felt the impact in terms of federal changes?
So I'll talk a little bit about the cuts.
Yeah.
So what we've seen in the last 5 years when the initial SNAP cuts happened, that was 2013, is that the lines have increased. So Food Bank for New York City surveyed our soup kitchens and pantries, and one of the things we learned is that 80% of them reported seeing longer lines. That means more people are coming out. SNAP was cut. That pushes people closer to the need for assistance.
And there was a SNAP cut in 2013, you said?
2013.
Wow.
So 5 years later, we're
Wow.
still feeling the effect of that.
Wow.
Another thing we learned in that survey is that 70% of our leaders in soup kitchens and pantries reported that they are serving families from multiple boroughs. So people are traveling to get their services. They're going across boroughs. And that really puts a demand on those small charities who are really working diligently to meet that need.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
Yeah. And you had a background working at ACS and city government, which I'm sure was a different kind of experience when you work within the bureaucracy. I don't say there's a negative word, just
Sure.
to describe it. But also, obviously, you dedicated your career to helping vulnerable people through that position as well. What were some of the lessons learned from working for a city agency set up to help people transitioning to a nonprofit? And what has been the overlap? And tell me some of the changes that you've been able to take a leadership role. And I know you were able to go back and partner with ACS in a very novel way. And I think it's a great story for you to share with our viewers.
Sure, thanks for the opportunity. So I worked for ACS for 17 years. And one of the things that I was responsible for is investigating child abuse and neglect allegations. And so what that meant, Tom, is that I had to go into homes, actually go in, investigate, ask questions. But not only that, I actually had to go into the cupboards. I had to open the cupboards and I had to determine if there was enough food. One of the reasons that happens at ACS is because neglect is actually in part defined by inadequate food. And some of these families just didn't have the means to provide food for their children. And so it was almost criminal to be put in that position.
What you're really saying, though, is that if there wasn't adequate food, a parent could have a child taken away on the notion that there was neglect, but in fact, if the parent had no ability to provide the food,
Yeah.
I guess that's what you mean by criminal, that we were locking people into such a terrible outcome.
Absolutely, and it was really solely based on the fact that they didn't have the means oftentimes to be able to afford it.
Yeah.
So it was very difficult to see that happening oftentimes. And as you stated, when I moved over to the Food Bank for New York City, I said we have to do something. We have this issue where families are struggling with food insecurity in this organization, and now I'm in a position where I really have an understanding of that, and I can work with my colleagues at Food Bank for New York City to bring these two entities together. And we were able to do that, and successfully able to establish the first food pantry in an actual ACS office over a year ago. So really proud of that.
Yeah.
And now families can come in not only to see their caseworker to talk about their case, but also to shop, and then everything's free.
Yeah.
They have food there. They actually have a little clothing section, a little closet, and they offer onesies and diapers, and it's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. At some of the locations too, you mentioned and share with the audience that there, besides the food and the non-food items, there's also support, counseling, help with other social needs. Talk about that.
Yeah, so Food Bank for New York City, we really are a comprehensive organization. So we know that if you give a person food, that's going to help them, but it isn't going to help sustain them over a long period of time, right? They're going to continue to come back. So we also have other services in our financial realm that we make sure that we are providing to any New Yorker in need who needs our services. We have a free tax program. So it is one where if you qualify, you can come in and get your taxes done for free. We also have the ability in our actual pantries to connect a family in need to SNAP. And so we don't have to send them to a local office. They can come in for food. They're familiar with the leaders in those pantries. And then those exact people can sit down with them and do a full-on SNAP application and submit that.
Do you end up doing referrals as well? If let's say it's even just beyond the food need, it's a homeless family, or I'm sure there may be times where you find someone coming in with a mental health issue. Do you get involved with those kinds of intervention and referral? Is that part of what you and your allied organizations get involved with as well?
We do, for sure. We actually have the ability through what we call our tiered engagement network to connect with other organizations across the city, community-based organizations who are providing those very services that you just mentioned, and be able to send those referrals directly out. So again, you're talking about someone who's vulnerable, who doesn't have a lot of time, doesn't have a lot of money or resources, coming into a food pantry, being able to then be connected to a service in their community. And that service connection allows them to actually have an appointment by which they go in and they're able to be seen right away.
I'm learning a lot from our conversation, that the reach of your network and the work that you're doing is really quite incredible and quite remarkable. And we often think about how can people access opportunity, and sometimes people talk about, go to a shelter or you call some city agency, but I would not have thought that going to a food pantry could provide this kind of gateway to really helping people.
Yeah, it really is.
I know we mentioned some of the federal issues in terms of cuts. We just went through the experience of the federal government shutdown. And I gather even that had an impact on you. Talk about what the response was that you had to provide to families that were suddenly not having any income coming in.
Absolutely. So I think we all know the impact of the cuts. I mean, it was absolutely the shutdown. It was absolutely something that impacted our city. What Food Bank of New York City did was that we immediately responded. We knew that federal employees who were furloughed were also going to be at risk and in need of our services. And so we established what we called pop-up pantries. We did a pop-up pantry at the Barclays Center, and we really wanted to choose iconic locations in the city where people were aware of, they knew about them, and they could come in and get their services. We also held one at Yankee Stadium in the Bronx. So we held 2 pop-ups just for federal employees. And the other sort of second layer to the shutdown that people don't always realize is that there were many families who are on SNAP who were also greatly affected by that. What happened during the shutdown is that SNAP was issued early. So families got their SNAP benefit in the month of January, and that benefit was actually to last them all the way through February until the beginning of March. Wow. So New Yorkers who are relying on SNAP have not received a SNAP allocation since mid-January. Wow. And we're talking about an award that generally lasts about 2 weeks. Now, I think, hopefully it should last them for 6 weeks, but we know that that's just not possible. It's just not going to happen. Yeah. So Food Bank of New York City, we jumped in, and we also held pop-up pantries across the city all week last week while children were out of school. We went into schools, and we were giving food away and resources to families in need.
Wow. That's being very, what's the right word, nimble.
Yes.
Responding to the need when it's there.
That is actually absolutely right.
With all the years you've been doing this work, do you get a sense we're getting better on dealing with the hunger issue? Or, I mean, you must see some very tough situations.
Tough situations every day, we just keep working. We keep moving ahead. We have a lot of heroic leaders in food pantries and soup kitchens who are diligently working every day to help meet the need. They can't do it alone. And so it is really, it's an issue for our city.
And if people want to donate or help, monetary or other kinds of donation, what are the options for people in the community?
Sure. Donations are always helpful. Every dollar donated to Food Bank of New York City allows us to support a family by giving them 5 meals. So please go to our website. If you are able to donate even $1, it really helps us to be able to get closer to meeting the need of New Yorkers.
And we will put that website up on the screen to get the word out. You used the phrase earlier, food insecurity. Is the average New Yorker, if that's the right phrase, aware that we have a food insecurity challenge in our city that's facing so many families, or is the hunger issue invisible to the larger community? What do you think?
Yeah. I think sometimes it's hidden, but I think it's hidden in plain sight. It's right there, but people don't see it. Yeah. And advocacy is one of the things that Food Bank for New York City is at the forefront of, and raising awareness around this issue and sharing the message and encouraging others to really get involved. Yeah. Write your elected officials, pick up the phone, make a phone call, talk to your neighbors. Yeah. The reality is you don't really know who's hungry. It could be the person sitting next to you at work, could be the child sitting next to your child in school. Yeah. 1 in 5, right? So it's pretty major.
It is alarming when you point out that many of the people you serve are people who are working. It's not that they are homeless or without income. So if someone is struggling and wants to get help from the food bank or from the other organization you're affiliated with, how do they access the help?
Please, if you are in need of help or know someone in need of help, go to our website, www.foodbanknyc.org. We have what's called a food locator, and it has a listing of every food emergency feeding program in New York City, and so you can find help, and help that's really close to you.
So what you're saying is you can locate the assistance probably right in your neighborhood or in the neighborhood right next door to you.
Absolutely. We have close to 1,000 programs across the city, so there are emergency feeding programs in every borough.
So help is easily accessible and conveniently located is really the message. Great,
Absolutely.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time, so I have to say thank you. We'll have to have you back, give us an update about the progress that you continue to make, and I appreciate the innovation that you've brought to your leadership role with the food bank and really helping people that have tremendous need.
Thank you so much.
So to learn more about the Food Bank for New York City, visit the organization's website, foodbanknyc.org, and foodbanknyc.org/donate if you would like to donate, which I think would be a smart thing for you to do if you can. You're watching Represent NYC on the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, and I will be right back after a short break. And thank you again, Dr. Grant.
Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Represent NYC. I'm New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli. My office has a number of different responsibilities, from keeping an eye on the city and state budgets to reviewing state contracts and spending and managing the state's pension fund. But we run a few programs that I'm often asked about because they offer individual New Yorkers a chance to find and save money. First, I'd like to talk about our Unclaimed Funds program. You may not be aware that every time a bank account lies dormant for too long, or an insurance check goes on claim, or a gift card is left unused, that money doesn't just disappear. Unclaimed or forgotten funds are sent to the state for safekeeping until the rightful owner comes forward. There's no expiration date on unclaimed fund accounts. Some of these accounts have been waiting for decades to be found. Right now, there's more than $15.5 billion, that's billion with a B, waiting for New Yorkers to claim. My office returns an average of $1.5 million every day. Most of these accounts are small, under $100, but not all of them are. One New Yorker was able to recover almost $2 million from a stock claim owed to them. The largest account waiting to be claimed is an estate worth $8 million. You can search and file a claim online at our website that's being presented on the screen. Or you can call our 800 number, 1-800-221-9311. So take a few minutes to see if you, your relatives, your friends, your church, your synagogue, your mosque, or your favorite charity has money waiting to be collected. And remember, this is a free service. There's no charge or fee to get your money back. Money can be hard to come by, and that's one of the reasons my office also manages New York's 529 College Savings Program. There's no better investment than higher education, and it's never too early or too late to start saving for college. New York State has a great public university system in SUNY and CUNY, but the average cost for tuition for room and board and fees for a full-time student can be more than $21,000 a year. Obviously, costs can get a lot higher at private universities, and we all know the challenge graduates face from tuition debt. A 529 account is the best line of defense against the high cost of college. 529 account holders withdrew nearly $1.7 billion to cover college-related expenses in 2017. Opening an account is simple, and there's no minimum deposit required. A 529 account is an investment account with very, very low fees, as low as 0.13% or $1.30 for a year for every $1,000 invested. The best part is that the earnings are tax-free when withdrawn for qualified college expenses, and contributions to a 529 account can be deducted from your New York State taxes. If you want to learn more about opening a 529 college savings account for yourself or a loved one, visit the Office of State Comptroller website that you see below and search for 529 college savings account. Or you could call our number, 877-697-2837. Account holders can set up direct deposits from their paychecks or designate approved relatives to make deposits. There's no better gift than helping a loved one get a head start on life with a college education. Now, similar to our 529 program is another type of investment account we manage. The New York ABLE program helps individuals and families save money for loved ones living with disabilities. We launched New York ABLE in 2017 so that individuals with disabilities and their families could put money aside into an investment account. The money can be withdrawn as it's needed, tax-free, to cover expenses related to health, wellness, housing, transportation, education, and other expenses. Participants can access their savings online by check or through a debit card to cover qualified expenses. To learn more or to see if you or someone close to you qualifies for a New York Able account, visit the website that we're presenting on the screen or call 1-855-NYABLE. Well, we've run out of time, but as always, it's been a pleasure to share information with you. My thanks to Dr. Camesha Grant for sharing her insights with us today as well. I hope we've shed some light on the issues that affect New York City and the people who live here. I'm New York State Comptroller Tom DiNapoli. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for watching Represent NYC on Manhattan Neighborhood Network.